I don't know what to do in half an hour, so we may be done. Anything I left out I need to do today?
Share the life cycle thing?
Not in half an hour. Wouldn't do justice to it.
In your picture of man, I see that you've changed, like number 7 now is I am important. So
Changed it from what?
Last time number 7 was understanding.
Well, just like the urge to power is the only part of us that can change. Okay? In fact, it is the part of the body that transforms. Okay? If we can stop walking around thinking that what we need is enough power to control circumstances so I can be non-disturbed, and we can realize I just don't need to do that. I'm living with an incredible intelligence that's managing life just fine. I don't need power to make everything non-disturbing because life ain't going to do that. And I can sort of get over this need to control and get others dependent on me and all this sort of stuff that says. That's the part of the physical form that undergoes transformation when it's used for something else. Now, if you want to know what that something else is, the best word I can come up with for it is humility. If you can get that part that wants to be powerful to instead want to be humble, you're using it properly. But of course, those are just words, aren't they? The 7th decision is the same way in the personality. It's the only part of the personality that makes sense to change. Yes, I'm not important and I never will be. And there's nothing I can do about it. So having that decision is goofy. So that one, it might be worthwhile to change. And what I recommend that people do is when they can, sit down a little bit and be honest with themselves and say, what do I want out of life? Okay? And make that the 7th decision. Do it the same way you do any other knot and report with great emotion or feeling to X. I want this. Okay? Now, I have recommendations, but they work for me because I can want them. They may not work for you. You may not want them, okay? And so I recommend things like, I want to know me. Or I want to be real. I want to live. I want understanding. Or, things like those work for me, okay? Kind of like, one day, many years ago, God went to Solomon and said, what do you want? And he said, I want wisdom, because with that I can get everything else. Well, see, that's kind of the way I feel about it, okay? If you're going to ask me what I want, and you're going to give me like one thing, then I might as well make it something that'll get me all the rest, huh? So that's what I want, okay? But I don't know if that'll work for everybody. If you can want that, then fine. That decision is worth changing. Make it something you want, so there's a driving force inside you, just like the driving force that says bitch all the time, whine, the one that says please all the time, the one that says what a piece of turkey, whatever you are, and the one that says everybody else is the same. And that just drives, it just goes, isn't that right? You don't have to start it up in the morning, do you? Isn't it pretty much there the minute you open your eyes? Okay? Why not have the same kind of driving little nagging thing inside you that says, I want wisdom? You see? Instead of, I want to be important, which is part of that urge to power stuff, isn't it? So I do recommend to people that when they feel able to make a decision like that consider it. What do I want out of this? And make a new decision. Okay? And get that same kind of nagging little thing. And basically what we're doing is practicing having a conscience, which you don't have yet. Only conscious people have consciences. Okay? But we'll make something like it. Something that keeps me working all the time. That keeps me at the teaching. That nags me and says, there's something I want out of this. Okay? Even if I believe it's going to get me down a certain side, I don't give a damn as long as it keeps me going. Okay? I'm not going to leave that the way it is for very long anyway. Just until I sort of get to the point where I can make a new decision, and maybe we'll construct a new personality based on some new ideas. Okay? So I really don't care. Just something that keeps me slogging away at the work. It never lets me forget. Because that's something that we do very easily, isn't it? We get all fired up, and then in a week or two we sort of forget. It's one of the reasons why I like doing the weekly little tapey things, you know. Then when Phil remembers, you get this little thing in the mail that says, "Oh yeah, the teaching." Just in case you forgot, you know. It's tough, isn't it? I mean, we go, probably by now most of you don't forget for a week, but it's easy to forget for a few hours or a day or two, isn't it? Get all wrapped up in some problem that you just got to solve, and wake up a couple days later and realize you haven't even thought about the teaching ideas for a couple days. Maybe not, but it is a bit of a difficulty, isn't it? Because the awareness is now fragmented into jillions of little not eyes, hasn't it? They were all originally the awareness function, but they fell apart. Broke off into pieces and became separate entities that sort of possess you. Then, when we tell X, we really would like to observe this self, okay? We set up an observing eye that watches what psychology calls the unconscious, or what's the other word they use? All right, we'll just stick with that one because I can't remember it. The unconscious mind, okay? The only part that we really are aware of is the chooser, and that's just the tip of the iceberg that turns into thoughts, words. All the rest of the not-eyes are what is called the unconscious mind. Okay? And people say great power resides there. I guess, you know, that's probably true. I don't know. This seems silly to me. That observing eye can sit and watch that part that you're ignoring right now, because there is no such thing as conscious and unconscious. There's just what I'm paying attention to and what I'm not. And it can sort of report to you, okay? So it reports to you that the not eyes are doing such and such. Now, the point of this is to stop seeing it as true and realize it's just a suggestion. The not I is suggesting that I know such and such. And I stop for a second and say, how do I know that? That's just a suggestion coming from self.
When you say it reports to you, you mean it reports
to the awareness function.
Your awareness.
Yeah. Comes sometimes as words in your head saying, like he said, oh, that's a complaint. Oh, that's a whatever, okay?
Oh.
Now, the thing is that I don't have to pass that on to X anymore if I see it as a suggestion.
So the thing that responds, oh, that's a complaint, that's actually you? Or that's the awareness function? It's going to report to X? I'm sorry.
Only the awareness can report to X. What happens is that these details are not really important, okay? But the point is that one of the number one not eyes says, I'm going to tell him how ticked I am, or I'm going to groan, or I'm going to cry, or whatever, okay? But some complaint to the chooser, who then has to also listen to, no, you shouldn't do that, you should please them, or you should put on some other act, you should act like you feel good even though you feel like crap. The chooser perhaps picks that number one not I and says, no, I'm not going to pretend like I feel good. I don't want to do that today. I'm going to go ahead and cry. I deserve it. And that last part all goes to the awareness function as I've made a choice. I'm going to cry. I'm going to tell them. And the awareness reports that to X as true and valuable, even though it isn't even its idea. And had to go through several stages to get there in an argument on top of it. And then X cries. Now me. Thanks. Does that make sense? So part of what we're doing with the observer is to get something in here that kind of makes it, clear. This is a not I. So I can just see it as a suggestion. I don't tell X I want to cry. I say, X, there's a not I that's telling me to cry.
You make them go through customs.
Then I don't cry. Because I'm not telling X it's true and valuable that I should cry. I'm telling X that something in the head is telling me I should cry, telling me I'll tell him that I should cry, okay? But I don't actually do it because I don't believe it now. It's just a suggestion. And X does know all about this. After all, he made the not I's. He knows all about them, okay? And what quite often happens is that X then flaps that not I.
What?
He just makes it disappear. I don't know what he does to it. It just goes away. Now, because we have so many, you'll probably still cry again because there'll be some other not I that cries about something else, but you'll never cry about that particular thing again. It's gone. This is what I was saying earlier is the slow way to do things, because there's a whole lot of these. If you got to single them out every single time you black them, it'll take you forever, okay? But, that said, even though that's true, it does give you a little space after a while. You notice that things are not quite so hectic. And then we've also developed a little bit of strength, and somebody can say, by the way, there's a shortcut, you might be able to take it. But while you're just completely stuck in that personality, even if somebody showed you the shortcut, you wouldn't be able to take it, okay?
The observer can say that directly to X. It doesn't have the awareness function.
No. Only the awareness can talk to X. The observer's got to report to the awareness. Only I can talk to X, okay? Except for you, of course. But in this one, only I can do that, okay? The not-I's can just try to con me into talking to him. But they can't do it. And the observing I really is just another kind of not-I. It's what you might call a fifth columnist. Do you know that story? It's used in spy lingo. It's a way to disrupt the enemy organization. You send in a spy to your enemy, and they infiltrate a very key industry or organization within the foreign power that you don't like too much, okay? And they make themselves indispensable. It's called fifth column. The building doesn't need 5 columns, does it? It only really needs 4. But this person goes in there and they make themselves absolutely necessary to the operation of this thing, and then they split. And the building falls down. Okay, it's called fifth columnist. It means something in another language too, but that's what it means in spy lingo, okay? So in a way, that's kind of what the observing eye is. It's a spy, okay? It goes in there and it pretends to be one of the, little vermin, the little not-I's, and says, I'm your friend, tell me what you're saying, tell me what you're thinking. But in actual fact, it's reporting back to the awareness everything that they say, okay? Until you develop enough strength to be able to see into what's called the unconscious mind yourself. Okay? Because unconscious mind is only unconscious because you don't want to see it. The observer can kind of tell you things you can handle for a while and leave the stuff that maybe you can't deal with hidden still, okay? Whereas if you went in there, you might see the whole thing and that'd freak you out. But eventually you sort of get a little stronger and you say, oh, what the heck, let's just turn on the light and see what's here. Okay. I can probably handle about anything. Have I ever told the story about my trip to hell?
No.
many years ago, I thought it might be interesting to visit hell. Sounds like a nice place, you know. So I went on a little trippy to see what was there. And basically, I'm talking about the unconscious mind, okay? I thought that would be an interesting, I call it hell. Seems like hell to me, but I didn't stay too long, but I saw a couple things that you might find interesting. I suspect they're probably in just about everybody's unconscious mind, okay? The first thing I ran into, I'm being a little revealing here, but what the hell, it's about somebody else now. So first thing I ran into was an animal. Okay? It was a pig. You know what that was? My picture of me. Okay? Now, if you know anything about the way human beings symbolize with animals, that's not a pretty picture. And that symbol does mean that to me. It means exactly what it says. It ain't a pretty picture, okay? The pig is basically a false human that wallows in greed, in symbolic terms, okay? It is a simulated human being, because there's a lot of things about pigs that are real similar to people. Real similar, okay? So it's a fake human that wallows in greed. And that was my inner image of self that the Nadites constantly held up and said, this is you, and you've got to do what we say, or we're going to tell everybody. And of course I would shrink back in horror. Oh, that can't be me. Worked every time. I'll do anything but have that be me. I don't want to be a pig. So it sounds silly to say I saw a pig, but it was very emotional at the time because I recognized the picture, having seen it subliminally about 5 billion times in my life. Okay? That's one of the things they hold in there is some little picture they show you of what you'll become if you don't listen to them. And it's usually whatever you hate the most. That's why I say it's a little revealing. I guess there's nothing particularly bad about hating the idea of becoming a simulated human being that wallows in greed. And then I traveled a little bit further and I found this little room in which was obviously an altar where people worshipped and prayed. I don't know how I knew that, but I did, okay? And it was disgusting. It was full of like old moldy claws and decaying fruits and just stuff that had dust on. I mean, it was just like, I can't even think of the word. Just nothing but mildew, moldy, decaying, yicky, smelly, yuck.
Charnel house.
Thank you. So, of course, I had to look at it. And I got up close, and what I saw was mementos of every nasty thing I had ever done in my entire life. That's what the Nadites worship, because it gives them total power over me. All they had to do was pull out that little thing that reminded me of the nasty thing I did 20 years ago, and they had total power over me. If you don't do what we say, you'll end up doing this again. Okay? So, I can see why people don't want to visit the unconscious mind, okay? It's got lots of reminders there of things that we probably don't want to know about anymore. But on the other hand, I suspect, we might grow up enough that we could face our own demons and say, yeah, it's interesting. I remember sitting there just in utter horror once I saw what all those things were. And, it was pretty yucky for a little while, but even horror gets old after a while. And I started considering it for a moment, and I said, but the fact is, I didn't do any of those things. You did. You did them in my name with my body, but I didn't do one of those things. I didn't hit my sister when I was 3. You did. I remembered I was there. I hated every minute of it. I didn't want to hit her. I was arguing every step of the way. I want to do this. But they had all justified. I ought to hit her, okay? And I looked at it and I said, I didn't do one of these things sitting here on this altar. You can't threaten me with this ever again, because every time you show me that picture, I'm going to say, I didn't do that. I don't even feel guilty about it. I didn't do it. The worst you can say about me is I let it happen. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to stop it. So I'm not even responsible. Because responsible says able to respond. If I can't, I'm not even responsible. So you can't indict me with something that isn't mine. You're going to have to get me with something I did or could have prevented. I didn't have none of that. A few things I've done since I was able to do, and it wasn't them doing it, okay, have been pretty responsible, and on those times when it wasn't, I did what I could to address whatever difficulties it made. I got no sins on my conscience, so to speak, from the time when it matters. So it gives us somebody to look at what's in the unconscious without us freaking out. Until the day comes when you just don't care anymore. And you just throw open the doors and watch the rats and vermin run away, okay? Switch on the light and they'll all split. And the light is awareness. It's somebody looking, questioning everything that it sees, not accepting all those words, okay? Whatever the words are, question them. You may find out you're right. You may not. One day I may be able to report accurately, yeah.
I'm a little confused about your account of the pig. You said that in your instance, the pig was what not eyes, what threatening you with is what you would become if you didn't do.
Well, they actually said that's what I am, and I need their help.
Ah, right, okay. Because what you want is non-disturbance and lots of pleasure.
Sure, they were right, weren't they? I was exactly what they said, a simulated human who waddled in green.
Right, okay.
But do you suppose that greed's children are going to teach me the way away from them? No, I don't think so either. That's kind of what I thought when I saw it. It's like, well, you can't really threaten me that I'm going to become that now, because I realize it's true. That's what I am.
Right. Yeah.
But I also realize that it's not I that is that. And while I feel very degraded from doing all those things that they got me to do over the years, I wouldn't have done a one of them if I'd been given the choice. So I think I'll work to give myself a choice, because right now I don't have one. I'll work to see if I can see some third alternative to their back and forth opposites.
So were you a victim when you didn't have the choice?
I don't know. I really don't. I can't even think in those terms anymore. I understand the necessity of what I went through. So I can't even think of it as victimization. It was all very valuable to me, every moment of it. I don't know. I guess theoretically I was. But to me, every moment of that was valuable. Every hatred taught me the need for love. All those things that the folks in the family did to this one supposedly showed me some things that I really needed to see. I can't complain about it. Every burden that was heaped on me made me stronger. My theory of human beings is rather odd. But basically my feeling is that a loving parent burdens you with as much as you can bear and puts on one more brick. Because the big difficulty with we humans is the setup gives us the illusion that we're God. I think the only way you can get a human being to admit that they're not all-powerful God is to break them, so they have to turn into something else. So I got as much as I could bear plus a little bit, and it broke me, and I'll never feel like I was victimized by that, because my only choice was to turn to something else. Say, I need you. I can't do this by myself. Anything else, my friends?
Do you quickly want to share the recipe for contentment?
Oh,
Yeah, I heard about it.
okay. Sure. I wouldn't recommend hanging around in contentment for too long, you know. I'll show you the way, but I wouldn't stay there too long. Contentment is right on the edge between the hell that we live in and a real place to live, okay? It's right on the edge. And it's a lovely place, but it's just the suburbs of a beautiful town. And it's still based on an illusion. So, if you want to get there, by all means do, but I don't know if I'd stay there too long. But the way you get there is very simple. You reflect on a couple simple facts. One is, I already have everything I need. Okay? Now I said need. And that list of needs is quite short. I need food. I need clothes. I need shelter. I need transportation. That's it. Without those, I die. That's what need means. Some places, I guess you don't even need clothes. It's kind of nice. Some places you do. And I got all those. How about you? Anybody here not have any of those things? And I always have. Maybe not every single moment, but when I really needed it, it all showed up, because I notice I'm still here, and without those you die. So I got it, didn't I? You'll never be able to convince me that you didn't have what you needed. Because the test is, if you needed it and didn't have it, you'd die, and I notice you're still sitting here. It may not have been as much as you wanted, but you've always had those things, haven't you? Now, we have this illusion that I provided them by my own skills and efforts and labors. I went to work, and I made money, and I bought them. I think they were provided by a loving Father. Because I've got to admit, there were a few times in this life when I did not get them by the fruits of my brow. Okay? I was sort of a bum. And people just sort of came up and said, hungry? And I said, yep. Okay? I think they have been, even when I thought I was earning them with my own efforts, provided by a loving Father. And I think he'll probably do it again tomorrow. Okay? So I don't have to worry about surviving. If I really look back, I can see that my needs have always been provided for. Okay, sometimes by my own efforts, sometimes by others. Always by a loving Father. And I think just about everything else, and by the way, I only need food to eat now. I only need one pair of shoes because I can't wear two at a time. I only need one pair of pants. Everything else is surplus, okay? Until you start figuring out how to wear 4 or 5 pairs of pants, I think all those extras in your closet are surplus, which is fine, but I don't need them. And everything else is just what I want. I will not die if I don't get it, will I? It's just what I want. And I know exactly what I want. Everything. How about you? I know what I want. I want everything. But I can see a little thing here by looking at what I want. Even though I want everything, I don't want it all now. That would be terrible if I got it all now. I'd enjoy it for a week, or a month, or maybe even a year, and then I'd look around and say, now what the hell am I going to do? So I kind of like life's way of giving it to me slowly over time, which is what he's been doing as far as I can tell. I don't have everything yet, but I have been given a lot of things that I want. And I think this is a pretty neat setup, don't you? Give you a little bit today, you get to play with it and enjoy it, and then maybe you get a little tired of it, and lo and behold, along comes another little thing you wanted, and you get to play with that until you're bored with that, right? Don't you think that's a pretty neat setup? A lot better than our idea, which is I want it all and I want it now. We don't even think beyond that point, do we? So it looks to me everything's going just about pretty good. I got a whole list of things that I want to keep me interested, to keep me going, so I'll get up tomorrow. See? Why would I get up tomorrow if there wasn't anything I wanted to do? I'd just lay in bed and say, I don't want to do nothing. All those little dissatisfactions and things that I want in life, they give me the gumption to get my butt out of bed every morning, don't they? I'd happily just lay there. I don't know about you, but if I had my way, I'd just lay there. If I didn't get hungry or something, I'd just lay there. That'd be okay. But there are things I want, so it gives me the desire to go on. So it looks to me like everything's just fine. How about you? If you can make this real, I see what I want it all, and I want it now. But I realize that if I got it now, I'd be sorry tomorrow. So I think we'll leave it the way it is, that I'll get a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow and a little bit a year from now. But I have everything that I need. If you actually see that, not as words, but you actually see this is the way it is, and it's okay that way, then where you are is content. Isn't that right? I didn't say everything's perfect. I said I'm content with it just the way it is. I think it's pretty neat. So if you start to get a little upset, I guess you can reflect on this a bit and see if you can move into a nice suburb of heaven called contentment. Okay? Another little thing I'll hand to you, just for the heck of it, since we're on this subject. People mistake contentment for satisfaction. One is a state of being. The other is a state of the senses. Or you might say that contentment is a state of mind, or state of being. Satisfaction is a state of the senses, okay? And by definition, satisfaction is going away. When I eat a nice meal, I'm temporarily satisfied. That means that the senses are not hungry. Dissatisfaction is one or more of the senses getting hungry. They're not being fed. And I think that's the best thing there is, because it means I'm about to do something. Isn't that right? Anytime I get a little dissatisfied, it means I'm on an adventure. The reason I went to Austin many years ago was because I was dissatisfied with L.A. And next thing you know, I'm driving across country, getting a good paying job in another city where there was a whole lot of other interesting things to do. And I remember sitting out there on the beach in California feeling really dissatisfied with my life. And at first I started to get a little bummed out about it. And I said, heck, I can be content to be dissatisfied. You see how those are two different things. I can be content to be dissatisfied. Because it means I'm about to do something really interesting. I don't even know what it is yet. And about a week later, I had a job in Austin, was moving out there, and I said, oh, this is what it is. That's what's going to take care of this hunger. All right. Sounds like fun. So they're not the same thing, okay? Being dissatisfied is a state of the senses, and it kind of happens every now and again. You feed it, it gets full, and then it becomes dissatisfied again, okay? If you're dissatisfied with like the way of living or something, rejoice. Boy, are you in for an adventure. Who knows what X has got in store for you if you start reporting, I'm dissatisfied. That's all I did. I just sat on the beach and I said, X, I'm really dissatisfied with the way I'm living right now. And a week later, he had a job for me across the country. I said, want to see new sights, Phil? Okay. That sounds like fun. I didn't get that job. It fell in my lap. I made no efforts to get it. I didn't know I was going to move out of the state. Okay. But I told X I was dissatisfied and that was okay with me. In fact, I told him I was glad. That's called valuing what is, isn't it? I said, this is what's going on with me. I'm really dissatisfied with the life I'm leading right now. And I'm glad. It sounds like I'm going on a trip. What you got? I go to a travel agent, you know. What you got? And then there's another word we do love to throw around. Fulfilment. You heard that one, huh? You know what that is? Nothing at all. There ain't no such thing. Fulfillment, the way people use it, would be total gratification of the senses 100% of the time. And it don't exist, thank God. So if you're looking for something that's fulfilling, you're going to have a long search. Okay? How about if you find something that you like and that's interesting and accept the fact that even though you like it, the more you do it, you will have moments when it ain't even fun. And you work through those moments and it goes back to being fun for a while, but you don't expect it to be 100% of the time. And if you turn it into a profession, it'll be fun even less of the time. Because anything you do for a living, no matter how fun it is when you do it as an amateur for enjoyment or as a hobby, when you do it for a living, I promise it ain't going to be fun 100% of the time, okay? In fact, after a while, sometimes it gets to be a drag. When I was younger, I used to play with some pretty old jazz musicians. They were in like their 70s and 80s, and one time we went into a place that I happened to think was kind of nice, you know, a little nightclub somewhere. I used to play with them. A little funny little kid. It was funny, but anyway. And I remarked to one of the other musicians, and this place is kind of nice. And he turned to me and he said, Phil, after a few years, they're all dives. Okay, looks good to me now. And I suspect he was probably right. Don't mean that you can't still enjoy it, but you do got to accept that once you turn something into a profession, now it's something you have to do to make a living. Even when you don't want to. And it gets to be a drag now and again, so what? Who cares? You still get your moments of joy out of it, okay? But this concept of fulfillment does not exist. It's just an illusion, okay? There are states of the senses, satisfactions and dissatisfactions, and they're fun to play with, and they provide a tremendous motivation in our lives. We basically get out of bed because we're dissatisfied. We do all the things we do because we're dissatisfied, so I kind of like dissatisfied. And there are states of being, one of which is contentment, which is seeing the way it is and saying, you know, I think it's pretty well done, pretty well set up. I like it this way. Okay. So what's next, Mina?
I guess you will go to dinner, and then we're taking UFO.
Okay.